Hello and welcome to Rethinking Education, the video series where we talk to some of the most interesting voices in education and explore their ideas on teaching and learning. I'm Dom Traynor, I'm a teacher and I'm also one of Adobe's education evangelists, and in this video I'll be talking to Andria Zafirakou, winner of the Global Teacher Prize, about creativity and how we can raise the profile of creativity in schools. So Andrea, thanks for coming on, thanks for giving up your time, and if you could just give the people listening just a little overview of you, your background, and some of the ways in which we might know you.
Hello Dom, nice to see you again. My name is Andria Zafirakou. I'm an art teacher at Alberton Community School, and you may know me because in 2018 I won the Global Teacher Prize.
Fantastic, and tell us a little bit about your school. Sort of what you teach, the context. Maybe the social context as well.
Sure, absolutely.
All of those things that kind of led up to that Global Teacher Prize.
My school's in the London Borough of Brent. It's an inner city location. It's very highly populated, and in terms of the catchment area, it has approximately 140 different languages spoken in our community, so it's very, very multicultural. Lots and lots of high levels of deprivation, high levels of poverty, high levels of crime. You name it, we've got it in our local borough. In terms of our students are very local to the school, so most of them will either get on buses or walk to the school. We have, in terms of my cohort, we have approximately 1,400 students in my school at the moment. And art is a subject which thrives in my school, and the students love it simply because there's no language barriers for the arts, and they can communicate, and they feel that they can achieve, and they feel that they're just as good as anyone else in the class. And I think this is why we've been so fortunate enough to be recognised for the award, because our students are really, really excelling in these subjects.
And that's really nice, the way that you talk about that. That we've been recognised for that award, because obviously, your name is on the trophy or whatever it is on the placard, but you definitely don't see it like that.
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's that beautiful African saying that says it takes a village to grow a child, and that is what my school is. We are a village. We all look after each other, all the students, all the staff, and this is such a great opportunity for my community to celebrate. And I think that this is definitely one, not just on what I've done, but what my whole school community do. It's our award as far as I'm concerned.
And what everybody sort of wants to ask the $1 million question, which is what did you do with the money? Now I know, so it's a leading question, but tell us about what you did with that.
Yeah, well, I've been to Cannes. No, I'm joking. I had to kind of make an interesting decision, and a hard decision, because the money always felt really uncomfortable, Dom. It's not in our everyday world that you can say, well, I've just won $1 million. But what I decided to do was to really put my money where my mouth is, and I believe and I see myself as being such a huge advocate for the arts and creativity and education. And so I set up a charity called Artists in Residence, and what we do is we bring and we try and support artists and designers to work with schools to create small art residencies whereby the schools and the designers are co-designing a project, and hopefully our students will get inspired by the arts. And for me, it's that kind of magic moment whereby a young person can see themselves doing what that artist or what that role model's doing, and that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to kind of help promote the arts and education, but also help our young people to aspire to have a job in the arts or in the creative industries.
I find that really interesting on a number of levels, and this certainly feeds into the first question that I'm sort of gonna, the first of these questions that I'm gonna grill you on. But I think that's really interesting because I guess having a sort of artist in residence was something that a lot of adults maybe of a certain age might be more familiar with, or certainly people from a certain kind of maybe slightly more privileged background might be more familiar with having an artist in residence. But what is it about that and creativity? Because your messaging that you give out all the time is always around creativity. So what is it about having those artists in residence? What is it about creativity that you find so important?
So I was the child where when I asked my parents, I want to do GCSE art when I was year 9 and I had to tick that option checklist at school, they said to me, no, what jobs will the arts give you? Yeah, no, I know you enjoy it, but no, you can't, you should be a lawyer or a doctor, and do the academic subjects. So I was that child. And I know that in my community, a lot of my students have that same pressures. And I think it's kind of this migrant attitude whereby they want their children to do better than they could. And these are the jobs. So doctors, solicitors, lawyers, mathematicians, these are the jobs which will bring in money, which are respectable jobs.
Yeah.
And so
I suppose also being part of the establishment as well. A sort of a doctor or a lawyer is very much part of a fabric of society. And
that's
I guess
right.
In a migrant community, that's one of the things you're looking to do, is establish yourself.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think it's a financial thing as well. And I think what we're not really good at in the creative industries is promoting our roles and our jobs and saying, if you're a creative director of a company, you'll be earning this much money. Or if you were a designer, graphic designer, you'll be earning this much money. So I think as an industry, we're not very good at doing that. And as a result of that, our young people are not picking up GCSE arts or drama or graphics. They're not taking our subjects. And there's a huge decline in our subjects being selected. So I think this is in my mindset, if a young person works and sees the artist, the designer, then they can aspire to be that. And I think it's like, if you can't see it, you don't want to be it, or you can't be it. So I think there's that kind of mentality there.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because I know a lot of the creative industry, there's a big push to get diversity in there because there's a lot of male and white influence in a market which is actually trying to it's actually trying to cater to much more diverse kind of market out there, and that's not really happening. One's not really going to the other, but and so I see that and I think absolutely. But then I guess you will always have the other side of the coin, which is people who are saying, well, the arts aren't important to me. I am going to become maybe a doctor or a lawyer, or I'm going to become go into the trades and that kind of thing. And I would think, I personally would say they're kind of missing the point there. But what are your thoughts on that in terms of, saying, creativity for all? Why is that important? What are people developing there?
I think there's, that kind of attitude, that mindset is dangerous because what that's proven to you is that you're not valuing the skills which creativity can bring and what the art subjects can bring. So just to give you an idea, we can have like the leadership skills and the leadership opportunities you can have by undertaking arts. The collaboration, so we learn how to critique and give opinions and think, why is that happening? And I think, again, these are really valuable skills. One of my students who is, she's a genius as far as I'm concerned. She's probably one of the best artists I have ever come across, and she's a grade 9 across the whole board, so in every single subject. And when I ask her, so, what do you think the arts have given to you? And she'll say to me, Miss, quite simply, it's the time management. So I'm amazing at time management because what I have to do is really focus on getting something done quickly and making decisions quick enough because I don't have the luxury of time in the art subjects. And when I reflected on that, I really understood what she was saying. It meant that because if you were to write an essay, that could probably take you 2 hours to do. If you were to solve a really challenging an A-level equation in maths, that would probably take you maybe 10 minutes to kind of get your head around it. But to produce a quality A-level art piece, we're talking 5 hours, 6 hours, and not including the decisions that you have to make about the composition of the piece, the colours, design. So I think when it comes to time management, resilience, decision making, collaboration, being allowed to make mistakes. Which subjects can you make? Is it okay to make a mistake?
Not
and
many.
I think for me it's the confidence that a young person can get. So when they do go through that journey of, miss, this is not right, just keep at it, do not rub it out, keep at it, see where it goes, you're developing it right now, can see something. And when they undertake that journey, they transform, they come out a different person. It's a form of success. It's for them is, I have created something that I can see, that I took part in, that is absolutely unique to me. And these kind of feelings, or these, I don't know, attributes for a young person, they're so vital and can make a huge difference to them.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of makes me think about what people call these soft skills, and I know a lot of people have a...
I hate that word! I hate that word!
Well, I knew that, that's why I said it.
Yeah, come on!
They are there, but exactly, it's those... Because I was thinking something in my head while you were talking, I was thinking, well, the 4 C's, like creativity, collaboration and communication and critical thinking, all of those things, I was thinking, well, that's exactly what you're describing now, and they are the C-level skills, and I think people are starting to call them C-level skills in terms of, like CEO or COO in terms of that kind of boardroom level skills, whereas, maybe the business world sees that and they recognise that, but perhaps the school world doesn't. And why is that, do you think?
Because, Dom, I don't think that schools value the assessment, perhaps, in the arts. So it's very difficult to assess arts, and it's not just 1 and 1 is 2. It's not that simple, and the assessment of creativity can take so much time. And sometimes, art can be, very subjective, and I say fluffy because, you can really kind of create incredible responses to a piece of artwork. But I think that's probably what it comes down to. But another thing is that, developing skills of mastery, developing the skills of drawing, developing skills of painting, this takes a long, long time. This is not just a let me have a go now, that's it, I'm a master, I can paint like Leonardo da Vinci. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes resilience. And again, to measure that, it may take 5 or 6 years to achieve that level of perfection. So that's why I think it's caused quite a lot of problems.
Can I just jump in there, because I think you're doing really well because you're kind of preempting all of my questions. But one of the things that kind of it makes me think is that the actual current model of education and the way we have these subject silos is that that's where the squeezing of creativity happens, because you might well be doing art, for example, but that's not bleeding across into maths, and it's not bleeding across into science, because everything is so siloed. And then you also touched on assessment, and how it's really difficult to assess creativity, because one man's meat, another man's poison, or whatever. There's probably a million phrases that saying the same thing. It's completely subjective, isn't it? So what effect is that sort of silo model of you study this subject within these parameters and it doesn't bleed over into art and it doesn't bleed in? What effect is that having on children and on their development?
Well, it's having the effect that we're seeing now, the fact that they're not valued. And actually, if you're thinking about the greatest people in this world, we're looking at Leonardo da Vinci. He was a scientist and an artist. Damien Hirst, a scientist and an artist. Einstein, he was probably the most creative person out there, and he was a pioneer for creativity. So what we are doing, which is absolutely wrong, we're categorizing each subject in boxes. So, maths, that's your box there. Science, that's your box there. But it shouldn't be like that. There should be lots of kind of cross-curricular opportunities. I think this is a really great time to kind of think, well, in physics, how do you teach light? Well, in art, light is so important to us as an artist, and how we teach light and how we look at colour through light. And I think there's a great opportunity there to share good practice and to share knowledge, and maybe to do some more kind of some problem-solving projects or some exploration projects, as opposed to having a really kind of heavily dense knowledge-only curriculum. And to be honest with you, when you got Google and you got Alexa, and knowledge is and you just got to kind of recite knowledge, what makes you different to anyone else when you're trying to compete for a job? What makes you different? It's your personality, it's your skill set, it's how you come across, it's how you can talk to a colleague, how you can talk to a customer. And I think this is what the employers are looking for, these types of human beings who can really adjust into different environments. You get this through people who have studied the arts.
And that is so interesting that you bring up people like Leonardo da Vinci and Einstein, for example, because like they're held up as these kind of like paragons of, you know, this is the best of the best and all the rest of it, and we look at how, you know, artistic they were, or musical they were, or creative they were, but then how, you know, incredibly scientific or mathematical they worked in. But and we hold them up in terms of, you know, this is what we, you know, let's have a society full of these kind of people. But yet when it comes to schools, we almost do exactly the opposite. And is that an issue around assessment?
I think there's a fear, actually. I think there's a fear of the unknown of what the arts can achieve in a young person, and it does come down to assessments. But I also think it comes down to valuing. So how do you value arts and culture as a country, or do we value maths, science, and history? My problem is, why should there be an or? It should be an and. You know, we should be valuing arts, we should be valuing music, we should be valuing sports and health, we should be valuing science. There shouldn't be an and or an or. It's everything together. And if I'm having a look at my own children, I've got two daughters. Two headaches. One of them is who is 9 years old, is uber creative. I mean, she's like a mini me, uber creative. And the other one is the opposite. She's much more academic. She finds it really challenging to kind of be creative and to be open and explore and experiment. And I think this just sums up the human race. We're not all the same. We are not all going to be excelling in maths, science, and art. But as long as there's opportunities where all children and young people can engage in a variety of different skill sets and techniques, then at least they have got that toolbox in their life to do anything else they'd like to do.
I mean, that's interesting, because I was going to ask you. You were talking about, they might not be, an artist further down the line. That's okay. We're not bothered about that. We're bothered about them having the chance to do it, to develop the skills associated with, being artistic or creative. So like if you had the power to, bring in opportunities within schools for children to develop these kind of skills, what kind of things, on a really practical level, what kind of things would you want to see happening? Are we talking, GCSE art being compulsory? Are we, what is it that you would love to do?
I would number one, really kind of get rid of the EBAC or any kind of measure which restricts our young people. I think that's the first thing I'd like to do. Now, the EBAC, as we know, it's a group of subjects which if you undertake, it provides you with an EBAC acknowledgement, which is not useful unless you are measuring measuring data on a score basis. So there's no point of that. So I'd make sure that every single subject had its equal value. I'd make sure that every subject made sure they promoted the career industry, their careers. So if you wanted to go into the world of geography, what kind of careers can you get into? What kind of careers can you get into if you wanted to study philosophy? I think that's really important, to make sure that students are aspiring. They're thinking, oh, actually, I can get a job in that, or oh, that's really interesting. For me, what's really important is the acknowledgement that actually our young people now, when they graduate, and after 20 years after graduation, they probably will have about 5 or 6 different jobs. So by having 5 or 6 different jobs, how are we equipping them for every single stage of that transition? What kind of skill sets do they need? Because they've got to compete. We now cannot think in our little silos of countries. We can't just be like in London or thinking in Manchester. We're thinking global. We are competing for jobs across a global kind of continent. And now that we've got IT, we can really kind of connect quickly and produce results for our customers. So the more of a variety, the more of a kind of a broader curriculum we can give our young people, I think that's really, really, really going to be to their benefit. And there's one, I think the one thing I need to kind of, that I've noticed is that not everyone will enjoy doing art GCSE, not everyone will enjoy doing music GCSE.
That will be a common thing, won't it? People will say that all the time.
And that's no problem, you know, I don't, you know, if, you know, the advice I say to my own students, I say to them, choose your GCSEs because for you it's like a hobby subject. You're going to be doing this for many hours. If you're inspired by it, if you're naturally good at it and you're getting good grades, this is why you should study a subject, not because you want to follow a particular pathway, because at the end of the day, the job that you're going for in 5 years' time won't exist. Things are changing throughout the world. You know, the robots are coming. So you know, it's what do you enjoy? Because I felt when you enjoy something, it will just success and happiness will come naturally to you. And I think that's the thing that we need to kind of plug for all our young people.
I mean, it is very interesting, isn't it? Because careers education, you know, particularly the sort of Gatsby benchmark stuff that's coming in now, is really placing an emphasis on that. And I think on that idea that, you know, it's not about studying geography, it's about you know, being maybe like a drone engineer who maps, you know, sort of landscapes or whatever for commercial building projects or whatever, and it's being able to connect them to that sort of that end point, I suppose, rather than it being I do this subject because it's going to get me this certain mark. It needs to be further than that, I suppose.
And I think this is where some of the primary school work is really brilliant, and because what they sometimes do, they have a topic, and with that topic they explore maths, they explore science, they explore the arts and creativity. And I think if we worked in that mindset, in that concept whereby we're exploring topics or problems, so
in
what challenges, I think that's the way forward. I really think that that's going to be much more successful, because what you're doing, you're promoting problem solving, and I think that's that's the way forward really for our curriculum. We don't need to be knowledge based anymore. I think we need to just try and be much more kind of solution focused.
Yeah, it is very interesting that, because there's a lot of time spent in the secondary curriculum. I mean, I was amazed because I'm primary trained, but have delivered delivered teaching in secondary schools as well. And every time I go back in and sort of dip my toe into secondary again, I'm always amazed at the sheer volume of content that they have to get through. It's just quite unbelievable.
It's impossible, isn't it? It's impossible. And
I spoke to a director of English for a group of schools, and he said that he tells his teachers that they cannot afford to waste one lesson, one lesson going down a rabbit hole, for example, or looking down a sort of an alleyway or whatever, because he says you will not get through the content. Every day you do not spend on the content, the specified content, is a day you've lost and you won't get it back, because you cannot, unless you hit every single day on target every single time, you're not going to get to the end. And I thought, God, that is.
And so what? And then what happens is in July these students get examined. So they've built up their resilience. They're going to be examined in July. Then come August they have a month off whereby their brains are just kind of rested. And when they get back in September, if we were to give them the same exam they did in July, I do not think they would have remembered hardly any of that content.
Totally short term, and there's no emotional connection to it whatsoever. And
I think, but if there was opportunity for a student to have learned something whereby it was very much kind of through emotion, through exploration, through discovery, I think that experience they would keep with them forever. And again, this is what is the great thing about creative subjects, because and also sports and health, because this is where what we're really good at delivering. But it always amazes me.
I think it's incredible, really, because you touched on something there about learning being about emotion. And one of the things that I find in education is that we've kind of completely stopped thinking about that now. And it's like it's not about creating, you know, the creative arts, for example, is really good at sort of developing an emotional reaction somehow. You know, and that whether it's a positive or a negative one, but whether you find it really sad or maybe slightly embarrassing, or if you're doing like public speaking or something like that, But when you create an emotion, that is where memories attach themselves, isn't it? And so, and one of the things that I find we're doing, particularly in secondary schools, is we're just making it about remember it, regardless of whether you like it, just as a very cold-blooded task. And there's no emotion connected to it, and then we wonder why there's the kind of the skills fade or the brain fade or whatever.
So, following on from that, Dom, could you just maybe remember of something of some of my students' conversations we're having? So, 1 in 6 young girls by the age of 16, they'll be suffering from mental health. That's a stat that we know now is getting common. Mental health has increased in our young people globally, and what I've found is that in the art room, behaviour is different. I found that students who are at risk of permanent exclusion, the subjects which they love is either music, is either the arts, because they can completely zone out, be in their own kind of world. They are in their zones, and they are present there. They are healing. They are being mindful, and to have that opportunity is really, really rare in schools if you are not undertaking arts, and that really worries me, because we're going to be churning out loads and loads of young people who haven't got the mechanism to cope with their mental state. What makes me happy? How can I become happy? What do I do? Do I go to a textbook? No, go and listen to music, play on the guitar, or go for a run, do some yoga, paint, draw, create something on a Photoshop software, and if we don't give our young people the opportunity to do that, I think that's again where we're going to be having lots of problems.
Yeah, well, they might be getting 9s in their subject, but they're absolutely miserable, and there's absolutely no value in that, is there?
No, I don't know. I agree, and sometimes again it's that pressure of the examination. So why are our young people sitting 30 examinations in the space of 3 weeks in May and June? Why is that? What are we trying to get from them? Are we trying to see whether or not they're going to kind of like collapse?
Crack.
Are you going to crack? Oh, well done. What is it that we're trying to? Yeah, and to be honest with you, we're having loads of kind of conversations with educators throughout the world now that we're in this kind of lockdown period, and the theme of assessment is really, really, really quite unique, because we, at the moment we can't sit GCSE exams, we can't sit A-level exams, we can't sit the Key Stage 2 SATs. So, is the world coming to an end? Obviously not. It's not coming to an end. We just have to rethink of different ways of assessing our young people. And the one thing that I'm really excited about is that there's an opportunity now to really think about assessment, to also give that kind of the emphasis back on the word for teachers, and the word is trust. So trust in our professional judgment. Trust the fact that I can predict that this young person will get this grade if they carry on. And I think that's going to be a very, very interesting conversation that I'm hoping that ministers of education are having now at this moment in time, because I would hate to think that we're going to go back after this kind of lockdown to the same kind of situations, the same structures as we had before, because I think that's just that's just defeating.
It's a waste of a bad situation. The best side of it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So just to finish this off, before
already? Already? God, I thought we were getting
time flies whenever we do these.
I know.
But before we get too political and start creating our own new world order, what about give us an example? Give us an example of a dream project between your departments and say 1 or 2 others that you'd love. If you could just, scrap the timetable, scrap the assessments, and just say, right, give me the art departments now have the chance to partner up with 1 or 2 other departments on anything you like. What kind of thing would you love to do?
Okay, so I've really had a think about this question. And I would, just because I want to kind of prove the world wrong, I would say art and physics. I just want to say, art, come on, let's put the sciences in the room and see what's going to happen, and what kind of. And I actually did the science A level, I did chemistry A level, and I was just, and it just the skills that I learned from chemistry A level and how that combined with the art was just fantastic, brilliant. It's very, very unique. And so that would be something. So looking at physics and art, I think that's would be awesome. And the other one, which I think is going to be a bit more challenging, and I can't really see how it's going to work, which is a good thing, would be arts and PE, so the sports and health subjects. Okay,
Right.
you've got dance, but what else could happen? What else could really kind of what can you get involved there? Maybe art and rugby. How would that how would that work? So exactly. Yeah. So, but I think that's going to be. These are the kind of challenges that I love. What would happen if? What would happen if? And yeah.
But I mean, what's so interesting about it is that you suggested art and rugby, for example, and my brain automatically filed through a few different things. Oh, you could get them, taking photos and then combining them using this and but I thought, do you know what? That is so standard. It's so sort of. I mean, I'll give myself a pat on the back for being slightly imaginative, but there are so many other things. And the thing that surprises me is that we're doing this as a kind of thought experiment, when actually, this is exactly the kind of thing that, we talked about Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci. This is exactly the kind of thing they used to do, isn't it? Sort of like throw ideas together and see what happens. Da Vinci be painting furiously and then suddenly come up with some idea. And it seems to me that the fact that we're even sort of daring to think about, or having to tell ourselves to dare to think about two departments collaborating, just tells me what is wrong in the first place, that we don't feel like that's even a viable opportunity.
Which means that in school leadership teams, you need to have more creatives. You need to have people there who ask the questions, what would happen if? Or why should we do it like this? Or how can we change things? And just to kind of ask those creative questions, to get those kind of challenges and unique opportunities of collaboration going. I think that would make such a difference in schools, really kind of changing the skill set in those leadership teams.
Because I imagine that, you will know a lot better than I will, that it's probably quite rare to have an art teacher who becomes a head teacher. Is that true?
Well, actually, I've not met an art teacher who was a head teacher. Primary, yes, but secondary, no. Secondary, I've met somebody, a design technology teacher who was a head teacher, but I've not met, and yeah, I'm almost there. I'm almost there.
There'll be a lot of pressure on you when you become one, because everyone will be like, right, remember that interview that she had?
Yeah,
Let's see what she does now.
No, I think I'll be a terrible head teacher. I think I'm too passionate and too kind of emotional, and these are all kind of the artistic, the creativity kind, the creative kind of elements in my being.
Well, I think that's testament to you. I think you would be the only person who would say that you wouldn't be a good head teacher. So. Well, anyway, thank you very much. I really appreciate the conversation.
Oh, Dom, my pleasure. Thank you. It's lovely to see you too. We're changing the world, you and I.
Let's do it more often. Weekly.
Yeah.
All right, nice to see you.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that chat. Please do follow the links to the CPD questions and tasks, which you can do on your own as a teacher or as part of a staff meeting, for example. And also, do have a look at the Adobe edX tutorial, which I put together on how to make your own art portfolio using your artwork and your words and your digital skills to bring it all together with Adobe Spark. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.